Question is why the Trump administration has captured Nicolas Maduro, the Venezuelan president, and taken him off to the United States. Many answers. One, Trump being mercurial, Trump being unpredictable, and trying to scare world leaders around wherever he is at loggerheads that he can go to any extent. So the American war machine has gone right inside a country, captured the head of the state or government, and whizzed him away with apparently no resistance. So that's another mystery. But coming to the question why Trump has done this: one, mercurial Trump being Trump. Two, the oil economy of Venezuela. Venezuela is known to have the world's largest oil reserves, known oil reserves, not Saudi Arabia or Iran or Qatar. Venezuela also has second largest gas reserves, known gas reserves in the world. And the oil economy of Venezuela contributes to 25% of its GDP. Almost 100% of its exports are oil. Now, what angered Trump was that almost or much of it was going to China. So the argument is that Trump, by taking on Maduro, has actually taken on China and its energy security. We'll come to that in a bit, but coming back to picking up Maduro, he was someone, the Venezuelan president, who was presenting or posing himself as someone who was taking on American imperialism, projecting a picture of a strongman standing against the United States right under the nose there from South America, from the tip of South America. So he had to be taken on. Over the last few months, we had seen the Trump administration tightening the noose around Venezuela and specifically Maduro, sanctioning the government, not just the government, but President Maduro himself and his core team, his inner circle, for being involved in narco-terrorism. And that's where all these attacks on drug boats beginning September, what Trump said, Venezuela facilitating drugs supplies around the world, specifically the United States, never provided any evidence. 30 such attacks on those so-called drug boats, over 100 people killed. And while most of the drug production actually happens in Colombia and not Venezuela, Venezuela at most acting as a transit, but still, who asks President Trump for an evidence? So that's a second way of looking at it. Third way, coming to China, overall Chinese imports of oil and gas, just 4% of oil comes from Venezuela, but then that's one argument being peddled in from Washington, D.C. that the ultimate target is China. So one, mercurial Trump. Two, Maduro acting as a strongman and acting as a dictator in Venezuela. And three, targeting of China. These three things come together to explain why the U.S. has done what it has done. Now look at the Venezuelan internal dynamics. Look at Maria Machado, the opposition leader who was denied contest last year, and Maduro won third election on the trot. He came to power for the first time in 2013 when he was chosen as successor by Hugo Chavez. And since then, he had won the election in 2013, 2018, and 2024 last year. It was visible that he was throttling opposition space. Maria Machado, for example, was not allowed to contest, and someone else was. And even that person was, the opposition leader, Gonzalez, was having a lead over Maduro, and yet Maduro won. So it was seen as a stolen election, and America trying to project a picture under President Trump that, hey, we are pro-democracy, we are against dictators, and so we are going after Maduro. It's always never the case that what you see is what meets the eye in the case of the United States. So obviously those layers of targeting of Venezuelan oil, targeting of Venezuela's trade with China, all those factors come in. Now, look at what has happened in the last 48 hours or the last week. President Trump was building up those attacks and to test the waters. The first land attack was carried out on one Venezuelan port just 4 days back. Whether there would be a military response from Venezuela or not, which was not the case. And in fact, we had a very conciliatory statement coming in from Maduro just 2 days back, saying that he was ready to deal with the United States. He was ready to have trade with the United States in oil. If the US so wants, if President Trump so wants, he can sell oil to United States and not China. He also said that he's willing to have a dialogue with President Trump wherever and whenever he wants. So that climb down had happened and was visible from the side of Maduro, and yet we had escalation coming in from the US side with that land attack to test the waters, and then ultimately in the intervening night of Friday and Saturday in a Delta Force led military operation, almost like what the Americans did with Osama bin Laden in Pakistan when they picked him up, eliminated him in Abbottabad and took his body away from Pakistan, inside Pakistan, deep inside Pakistani territory. So in the case of Venezuela, the capital Caracas, remember, the place from where Maduro has been picked up is at least 80 to 100 kilometers inside from the coastline. So that much breach of territorial integrity and sovereignty of Venezuela has happened militarily, with accompanying missile launches and bombings carried out by the American war machine in lifting, abducting, whisking away a sitting president, head of the government or head of the state, in this case Nicolas Maduro of Venezuela, along with his wife, even as President Trump makes announcement in the press conference of the military operation. What is important is that if you look at it from the point of view of international law, this is clearly United States in breach of prevalent United Nations laws, and it would be interesting how the Americans really explain this. But ultimately, what we are seeing is under a very mercurial president, the US following its own writ, its own whim, and reading the international law as per its own whims and fancies in abducting a sitting president, irrespective of what the internal dynamics are. United States is nobody to decide whether Maduro is legit or illegal, because it's for the people of Venezuela to decide, and they can have contest, they can have rebellion, they can have a civil war if need be. But it's ultimately for the people of Venezuela to really decide what constitutes their legit government, what constitutes their sovereignty. It's surprising there that the mystery part of how come this abduction happened, why the anti-aircraft guns around Caracas did not fire when the American choppers and helicopters came in, why did the Russia supplied weapon systems that Venezuela has did not really come out in the open. What was Venezuelan military doing? Remember, the defense minister of Venezuela is someone who has been part of the inner circle of President Maduro for a decade and more. So why the military did not galvanize and scramble and the response come in before the Venezuelan president could be abducted? But that mystery, of course, would unravel over a period of time. You can expect the opposition not to speak because they really wanted to get rid of Maduro, but why the Venezuelan leaders in power were silent till the time that this happened or allowed it to happen. And now, of course, they are speaking that they are in control, that they are asking for the well-being of their president. America needs to come clean whether Maduro is alive or not. But Trump, of course, has sent a strong message. Remember, just a week back, they came out with national security strategy paper in which the Pentagon said that their arc of influence is now limited to Western Hemisphere. Set the things in order rather in the Western Hemisphere first and not bother about what's happening in Eastern Hemisphere, by which you read that they are not concerned about the Chinese area of influence, which is Eastern Hemisphere, but rather the Western Hemisphere, where Europe has negligible influence. So the Americans would really consolidate there. And this seems to be a piece. This latest action of abducting Maduro seems to be a piece with that NSS vision, where America seems to be trying to put the house in order and impose its writ in a manner that it really does not care about international rule of law in its neighborhood. We've not seen this for the first time. Remember how nonchalantly President Trump, even during his oath ceremony, said that he wants Greenland, how immediately on taking over, he renamed the Gulf of Mexico as the Gulf of America. And this is a continuation of the American unilateralism clubbed with the isolationism from rest of the world and focusing just on its own neighborhood that we have seen since President Trump came to power in his second term.